what we're going to do today. And always when I get to a department, I walk around out in the engine bay and see what's going on. And you've got a lot of Pierce trucks out there, so a lot of this is going to be repeat information for you guys. But we'll move through it pretty quickly, and hopefully get to some interesting things too. So. So my name's Tim Outlaw, as the chief said, and I'm with 10A Fire Equipment. I'm a part-time trainer now. It's my retirement job. I used to work at 10A selling trucks for about 14 years. So this is what I'm doing in retirement. Prior to 10A, I retired from the Lakeland Fire Department. So still live in Florida. Beautiful truck, an Ascendant platform. Those trucks are fantastic, amazing. Do that, all that on a single axle. There's some truck committee guys in this room, I understand, correct? All right, we'll just start with some very general information. Vehicle and safety information. We can just start with the vehicle sticker, and that sticker is on every Pierce truck. It has your job number right at the top of that sticker, and that's usually somewhere around the driver's position. So that sticker is going to have important information on there. It's got the job number, it's how you order parts and service. It's got all the gross vehicle weight ratings for the tires and for the front axle and for the rear axle. And that's information that you will need. Down below that, there's the VIN number, paint codes, things like that. And then all the fluid capacities and the kind of fluid that goes into it. So if you were deployed somewhere, if you were mutilated somewhere and you had a vehicle problem, you could point out to the mechanic who wasn't familiar with your truck exactly what kind of transmission fluid you use. It's right on this sticker. So if you know about that sticker, keep it in good repair. Always talk for a minute about the warranties on the truck. A lot of warranties on this truck beyond the 1 year bumper to bumper. So, and I tell everybody that because typically in every class like this, especially a larger class, got some guys in here, if they aren't already, one day will be in admin. And I tell you about these warranties and just highlight them a little bit to let you know, anytime you take a truck to us or to Cummins or to Allison Transmission for repair work, just ask the question, is this covered under one of my extended fire service warranties? The fire service warranties on truck equipment are longer than standard warranties. LED lights, I think, have a 6-year warranty. That's just one example. But ask that question. The vendors that you buy from and do your service work might not always have time to check that, especially the guy in the field. So just ask the question, it might save you some money. Okay, that wasn't just me.
No, that's.
I thought, oh, flashing lights again.
Yeah, no, that's just that getting that call.
Wait, 71 to you. It's us.
The medic unit's supposed to
Medic unit, yeah.
I think we even get it with transportation.
So consider those warranties, even when you bring a truck to us at 10A, consider those warranties. Just make sure that the service manager, service writer, whoever's writing your truck up for repair realizes that truck is less than 10 years old and might have a warranty on that paint defect you're there for, or that something wrong with the body or something like that. Might save you some money. Customer installed equipment, I always talk about a little bit, because it's so common for guys, once they get a truck in the station, to drill a couple of holes in it, put a helmet hook here or there, or a coat hook in the cab, for instance. You see that a lot. And just remember, anytime you drill a hole in this truck, in the body or in the cab, make sure you know what's behind that panel you're drilling a hole in. If you're drilling mounting a hook or putting something in the cab wall on the inside of the cab, take the perimeter screws out of that sheet metal piece and pull it back to make sure you're not drilling a hole in an air conditioning line or wiring harness or something that's going to cause you problems down the road. And please don't use a 2-inch screw to bolt a coat hook on a piece of 1/8 inch sheet metal. That leaves all that screw to go through the, through the body panel there and possibly cause you problems in the future. So use the shortest screw you can. And if you do drill holes in the truck anywhere, use a drill stop. A drill stop, you put it right on your drill bit, so the drill bit can only go through that far. In typical, pretty much everywhere on that truck, when you drill a hole, you're just drilling through 1/8 or 1/4 at the most sheet metal. So you don't want to drill bit that long and accidentally go all the way through, and maybe in the body, you can drill a hole in the booster tank, pretty easy, it's a plastic booster tank, and if you just slip a little bit, it's going to go right through that booster tank. So, and you don't want that. So be cautious with that installed equipment. Pierce lawyers want me to tell you about all these safety tags and labels. They're very important. There's good information on these labels, and just like OSHA rules and regs, these are all written in somebody's blood. Somebody was injured or killed because of some of these hazards that we call out on the truck there. And that being an aerial, there's probably 100 of these things on there. So got good warnings on them, just heed those warnings. Same with the cab occupancy label. Don't exceed the number of personnel. Not only is the number of seat belts, it's also how the truck's load rating was computed. So it's important that you don't add seat belts and add extra people to the truck that weren't in the original build. And also that last one there, that last danger label, don't ride on the, don't be on the exterior of the vehicle when the vehicle's in motion. That's not very safe. Safety equipment. So truck's built to NFPA 1901 standards, which is a very safety-centric document. Probably 1/3 of that document is all about firefighter safety. So lots of safety equipment that's baked in and built in. Handrails, grab rails, and I like to add fixed and folding steps to that. Make sure that those fasteners are still tight on all those handrails and steps and grab rails and things. Fasteners are still tight and still secured and it's clean and still has a no slip surface on all those items. Seat belts and the seat belt alarm system, make sure that stuff's in good repair. Any seat belt that's frayed to the point that you can see the long fibers beginning to separate from each other, not fuzzy, they all get fuzzy, you know, but the long fibers begin to separate, that seat belt needs to be replaced. And just bug your fleet or whoever to get a seat belt. We have seat belts, and you can get new seat belts for your truck. And the alarm system, you want to make sure that's in good repair. The SCBA mounts, I believe you have this variety.
That's correct.
And you already have those already?
Yes.
So I don't need to tell you about all the adjustments on that top claw, and you got to really check them all the time because they can get out of adjustment. A little Loctite works wonders in there, but they are pretty. It's a great bracket. I like this. My favorite of the ones out there, but it does require that you make sure those adjustments are right.
Can anyone do those adjustments, or does that have to be a maintenance person?
You can do that in the station. Take some Allen wrenches, I believe. I think a 1/4 inch Allen wrench. And then the whole claw moves up and down. That's just a hand knob. Yeah, you can get them too tight and it's rubbing through the wrap on the SCBA cylinder, and too loose, it'll come out. So you want to secure it. Here's some more of the safety systems built into the truck. You're really not going to interact with any of these systems to speak of, except of course the compression or Jake brake. You'll turn that on and off and select low, medium, or high. The rest of this stuff's be pretty invisible operation to you. It's all in there, but it's an automatic operation. And it says down here at the bottom, know when to use them. It should say know when not to use them. And in the case of the retarder or the Jake brake, you should turn that off in wet weather or anytime you got compromised traction. So it can cause the rear tires to break traction to the road surface. So be cautious about that. NFPA several years ago started mandating that we install a tire pressure management system. And for the most part, everyone just uses this very low-cost flashing LED valve cap. You may have those on your other trucks. They're a very low-cost option. I think that thing's $6 or $8 per valve cap. And you'll set the tire pressure on the tire, screw this cap on there, And then if that tire goes down about 10% in pressure, the red LED will start to flash to tell you that you need to put air in the tire or fix the tire if it's leaking all the way down. So there's even a test procedure for those, and I've included that in when I get done today, I leave a little memory stick of this training program, and the videos is on this little thumb drive, and also the instruction on testing these valve caps. So that information's here. And it will be also, this information will also be in your package you got with the truck, manuals, all that's usually on thumb drives now. So feel free to check those out. Truck is equipped with a vehicle data recorder, VDR, so that's the black box for the truck, like an airline black box that can identifies all these events, time and date stamp. So, good news is, you're in an automobile vehicle accident with a citizen, it can verify your narrative as to your engine, your speed, your master optical, your warning light switch position. That's the good news. The bad news, it can verify their narrative as well. Just be aware that that information is in there. To remove it, it takes a standard computer cable and a small, I'm pretty sure we still ship the software disk with each truck. It's just a little, any computer will run it, run the software, and you can download that information. It keeps only the last 100 hours of use, so that's ignition switch on time. So if you've been in an accident where you think of legal action is a possibility, I personally would advise you to get that information downloaded off the truck so that you would have verification one way or the other, whether you had your, red lights on, et cetera, et cetera. So, but seatbelt status, all these statuses and more are shown on that data. So just be aware that that's there. Before you put the truck in service, there's several things that, in my opinion, that you should do. One is just review the manuals. There's some great manuals after I leave today. There's some just generic manuals that come with the truck, again, usually delivered electronically now, but the one on custom chassis, actually it's going to be specific now. It'll say MPL chassis on it, I'm pretty sure. And then this one's good on the pump, and just a generic Pierce pumper manual. So, but there's good information in those. They're well written, and they can answer a lot of your questions. So it's good to review those. Also great to do a primary inspection. So this primary inspection I would call very similar to whatever you have for if you do like a monthly where you really look the truck over, tilt the cab, maybe get on a creeper and get under it. A monthly or weekly that you do that. Something more than your everyday stuff. Do that, pull the dipsticks, check everything out, tire pressures, all that stuff. When you get this, when this truck finally rolls in your bay here, one of our drivers or somebody brings it in, it's changed hands about 10 times. And it was in the hands of the guys that built it, and then it was in the hands of the guys that check it out at Pierce, Wisconsin. Then it was placed into the hands of a drive-away service driver, and then it came to the dealer. So every time that changes hands, that increases the likelihood of something falling through the cracks. Somebody checking something, finds something out of place and didn't correct. So it's a great idea. Just pull those dipsticks, give the thing a good once over. It's a good idea. The last thing I want you to do, the other thing I want you to do, is before you put the truck in service, put all the equipment on the truck, the full crew, water, foam, whatever you've got that goes on that truck. Get it fully loaded, take it to a scale and get a separate front and rear axle weight. Very important on this truck. Being a single axle, 100-foot platform, very, very close on weight. So there's not a lot of margin for error. Pierce is notoriously conservative in building these, so there should be sufficient margin of error to carry as much stuff as you want to carry, but that is an allowance. You're only supposed to carry about 2,500 pounds on the truck. And these days, as equipment intensive as we've become, it's pretty easy to overload the truck these days. Yes, sir.
little yellow placard that's typically above the driver's seat, left or right, would that weight, does that include water in the tank, or is that just how much the truck weighs dry?
That typically is what the truck weighed with water when it left Pierce.
Okay.
That'll have one driver, probably no driver in it, no people, no equipment. So you're gonna weigh that loaded vehicle, and several reasons for that. Make sure you haven't exceeded the axle ratings, the tire ratings, the load ranges. Also, you're gonna weigh it so that you can set tire pressure. I've been in this business over 40 years, and for most of that time, I thought that the air pressure that went in the tire, if it was printed on the sidewall. It says rated at 13,500 pounds at 130 PSI cold. I put 130 PSI. It's incorrect. So what you should do is find a tire pressure chart, and air pressure in the tire should be adjusted for the amount of load on it. So here's the example. As a tire inflation chart, you would find this if you had Goodyear tires. You go to the Goodyear website on the internet and get that tire inflation chart. Let's say we had a front tire that's 315/80 or 22.5 load range L. We go weigh our truck, and the front, the tire is rated at 18,000 pounds at 130 PSI. It's the only time you put 130 in. If it's got that much weight verified from the scales. Let's say ours only weighs 15,900 pounds. We'll only put 110 pounds of air. That's important for many reasons, but they say handling, tire wear, and ride. If you've got too much air in the tire, it's going to have poor wear patterns. It's got poor traction. So it's important that you have the right air pressure in your tires. So check that out. You'll get a weight for each axle and then do the math to figure out how much weight's on it. Go to a tire chart and set it accordingly. But then you can set it up, and I don't know if any of you remember the old days, we put a sticker or a little label above each tire well to say how much air. I remember some of those days. So, might make the truck ride better. If you have steering problems with the truck, you guys get TAC 4 suspensions?
Yes.
When they're brand new, sometimes they don't track best when you're going down the road. I've had a lot of them that would do that to me, before you get a load on it especially. But proper tire pressure can assist with that. So, if you got a tire overinflated, it's not going to have good contact with the road. The tread's going to be rounded. When you get that good squat and sidewall bulge is good, that's when you know you got good tread contact. So pay attention to those tire pressures. Cab controls, I'm not going to spend any time on in here. You guys have the trucks outside. We're going to go over it out there. So some of this stuff, I'm sure you already have trucks with DEF fluid, so none of this is going to be a mystery to you. HVAC panels, that's new. This cab control and diagnostic panel here, usually under the steering column in front of the driver. And we will talk about these two switches, reach in inhibit and DPF reach in. We'll talk about that a little bit later, right at the end actually, of our training today. You'll interact with those two switches. Tilt wheel, and this is all old news to you. Here. Pump shift, you can have a pump shift, probably pretty similar to this. And lots of switches. Electric windows and door, did you get door locks? Yeah, you got door locks as well. And I figured out, every time I go to one of these, I have to figure out again what the unlock codes are. So, but it's in your manual, the generic unlock code. Also in the manual is how you program your own personal lock codes. If you want it department-wide, you want to put a little extra measure of security, you can put a more complicated lock code than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. press 3, which unlocks all the doors. All right. Do not move the apparatus light. So, this is an aerial. So that light could mean many, many things. That's why we don't call it door jar light. It means a lot more than the cab or body door is ajar. This truck, it could mean the aerial's out of the cradle a little bit, one of the outriggers is vibrated out or down a little bit. So do not move the apparatus light can be many things. It means something's not stowed for travel. Yes, sir.
We have installed a separate light for the aerial.
Oh, did you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So it helps a lot.
Yeah. Well, it lets you know. You
Yes.
have to go look. And you've got a display on these, right?
Yes.
At least if it's a door, it tells you which side or which cab door. So that's kind of a help. Though the cab door you can see. But helps with body doors.
Helps with block doors. We've also had a couple incidents where the door was closed or, just off the sensor.
Yeah.
Door's completely closed, but it's not just latched, and we get those all the time.
So, yeah, imperfect system, but gotta have it. Gotta have it. And you have door locks on these compartment doors, correct?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
And they're keyed the same as the cab, I noticed.
Yes, they are.
So they're all keyed on. Command Zone Information Center. So this is the newer one of these Command Zone Information Centers. You have these on another truck?
Yes.
Yes. It's an older style command zone, but yes.
The old style Command Zone? All right. It's a big group, but we'll do what we can, but we need to do this. This part of the training, I'm going to show you on the truck, actually show you on the screen itself. So we'll go outside, and the guys that are probably going to drive it maybe crowd around, and I'll show you a couple of things that you can do with this that you might not have been able to do with the previous vintage one. So it's nice. You can change the lighting characteristics. At night, this thing can blind you, especially when you have old eyes. At night, as we age, our eyes don't react to the change in light and dark as fast as younger eyes do. And sometimes these things can really blind you. They're too bright. You can even set it so it just goes blank when you put it in drive. So that's another option too. But I'm going to show you those options out there as we go through. Pump components. So you've had pumps already. Everybody in here has operated a pump? All right, great. Just real quick then, it's a rear engine power takeoff. Old as dirt technology, every cement mixer drum is spun by this thing right here. Power takeoff runs off the back of the engine, turns all the time the engine's running. So, a drive shaft that runs along the top of the frame rails, when you tilt the cab, it's right there. It's got guards on it, no step, no step, no step. That drive shaft's turning any time the truck's running. So my cautionary tale is never tilt that cab with the engine running. Let the mechanics do that. Never tilt that cab with the engine. Always have to shut down. Even though we've got tons of guards on it, it's still a safety situation where you should probably have the engine stopped if you're going to tilt the cab. So there's what it looks like out of the truck. And you can see that the pump volutes way up here, and then the intakes and the discharges are all down here lower than the pump volute. So what this tells me is use that primer a lot. Every time you engage this pump, use that primer 15, 20 seconds. With a volute real high like that, every time you just disconnect the line and whatever you do to the pump, or at some point it might have a leak, it's going to be air in the top of that pump. So use that primer every time you engage that. Cab controls, I'm sure you probably just got a light and a switch there. We'll go over that outside. Panels, etc. Old stuff, you know all about this stuff. We don't have to waste time. We do use this air primer pretty much exclusively now. Have you had those before? So So we're good? Okay. Great primer. It really gets the trifecta. Usually you only get one of these three: better, faster, cheaper. With this thing, you get all three. It's less money, less complicated, less maintenance, easier repair. Really, really good stuff. Intake relief valve. Not talked about much, but every truck is required by NFPA to have an intake relief valve. Protects the suction side of the pump from overpressurization from an outside source. That would be somebody sending you too much pressure in a relay scenario. A system like a pumped fire main at a hospital or an industrial facility that senses flow and it's going to boost the pressure up to 150, 175 because it's got some elevation to work against. A high-rise building, it's going to have that. If you're tied into that system, water is going to pour out from under your truck the entire time you're connected to that system, because this is set at 125 pounds from the factory. There is where you change that pressure setting. So if you regularly have water pour out from under there, I mean, it's an area. You're in a situation you probably need all your water and don't want it pouring out on the ground. You might end up figuring out you need to adjust that and all your gated piston intake valves. Take those safety valves up to 155 or something. I just want you to know it's there.
So it's set 125 from the factory?
Yep.
And then how high could you go up to?
I think it'll go to 250 or 275. The TVs are going off.
TVs are
Shutting down.
Oh, man, that did
Timed
too.
out.
Nap time.
Sure. I think maintenance is working in the building somewhere. I've seen how they're doing something previously.
You still got one on.
Yeah. One is on, but I like.
Yeah, there you go, you're getting back.
You're
I
good.
don't know. That's weird. It's never done that before. That one will take, yeah, there you go. All right.
Okay.
We're on.
I thought we were gonna get a break there.
Well, if you need to take a break, that's
Almost
fine.
caught a break. Okay. So, be aware of this intake relief valve. This is a puck, so probably a little harder to find, but that's the intake relief valve. Pump operations, just a couple of safety items here. You guys are pros. Just protect your emergency personnel. Use your truck in a blocking, park it in a blocking way out on the road. Park it before the scene so that you protect your guys and girls with the truck so they don't get hit on the road. And use your response lighting. I know sound-wise, we've got sirens. I typically never hear them until they're right up behind me, right on my bumper. But the red lights, those always. So use that stuff. More lighting information and cautions here is be sure to use lighting around the apparatus. We have a lot of gray scene lighting built into the trucks now. 12 volt, low amp draw. Use that stuff. Prevent those slip and fall injuries. Wheel chocks. Use those as soon as you exit the truck. Could save pretty serious damage and injuries. In my career at Lakeland Fire Department, we had 3 trucks roll out of the station and across the street into another building. So they do a very good job sometimes. So be cautious. Use those wheel chocks. You gauge the pump. This truck is set up so that it's stationary pumping and pump and roll, but just basic pump and roll. And all that means is you have to get out of the truck to open the tank to pump out. Okay. So to engage the pump for stationary operation, you're going to engage the parking brake. You're going to put it in neutral, engage the parking brake. Observe the OK to stationary pump light, which won't be on unless you set the parking brake. And put it in neutral. Chock the wheels, engage the pump with a switch. Observe the pump engaged light and provide water to the pump. Simple as that. If you wanted to pump and roll, can you guys see an instance where you might use pump and roll, or you have so far?
Yes.
Good. I mean, it can be useful, can be very useful. So in that scenario, you'd stop the vehicle, pull the parking brake, engage the pump, observe your indicator light, say, okay to pump and roll. Yours may just be the one indicator light with both call outs on it, one green, one yellow. And then put the transmission into first gear. If you forget to do that and just leave it in drive, when it shifts out of first gear, it's gonna drop out of the pump. Safety feature. So put it in first gear, does two things, keep it in pump, and it will get your RPM up enough that you make some pressure. Otherwise, if it shifts, it did stay engaged, it would make any pressure. So,
It would go out of first gear above 25 miles an hour? Or is it not necessarily the speed rated? Because I know it says it'll pump up to 25 miles per hour.
yeah, and then it's gonna drop out.
Okay. So that would is that like first gear is 25 or?
That's pretty high RPM.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you could try that. I think it
I
would
don't
probably
wanna
shift
try it.
before that.
I was told 25 too.
I was gonna try 25 first gear in that truck.
No, not in that truck.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Depends a lot on how they're geared too.
Okay.
And whether they got 5-speed or 6-speed. So, a lot of factors there. Yeah, and you know, the great thing about this is you can leave it in pump, and you know, if you get somebody walking alongside the truck, wet down the median or whatever you're doing, you can just pull up 50 feet and just drop it in neutral and keep your foot on the accelerator and give them a little pump pressure, and they can walk along this way. Then back in one and move forward. It's pretty handy. All right. And just some basics here from Pierce, you know, drafting, try not to exceed 20 inches of mercury. Don't ask me how you're supposed to measure that. That's these three little tick marks on the gauge here. But if you've got really high suction pressure or vacuum, if you've got really high vacuum on your pump, you've probably got a strainer block, you've got a high lift, you've got some problem. Hydrant, they say maintain intake pressure above 20 psi. I just say my experience over the years, maintain some. You know, try to maintain, keep my leg against it, make sure there's still something there. But, it gives you a little safety factor. Pressure governor. So you have these on typically the pucks, and that hasn't changed much. There's a little change in the programming, but I don't think it's something you would ever see or notice. And do you have any of these still legacy in your fleet?
No.
All the new ones. So I don't have to talk about the differences. Because most of my time I spend telling them the difference between this and this, and how they're going to behave differently. Or this and this, and how they'll, because they behave very differently from those governors. So, but if you've got all these, it makes my job easier. So we will do a training presentation on this now. And if you want to stop me at any time here, just get my attention, and we'll stop and talk about some of these. It's a little video and it's girl talks, but it's pretty good. I skip a lot of it. A lot of it is sales, mumbo jumbo.
Pump and engine monitoring display. It uses a control knob, push button controls, LED indicators, and large sunlight readable digital displays. Pump pressure and engine RPM are changed by rotating a rugged control knob. The knob can easily be used with a glove hand, has no positive stop to reduce wear and tear, and incorporates an idle button to quickly return the engine to idle.
Sometimes I just can't stand to hear her talk, so I'll just do it myself. Better anyway. So, this is your governor. these governors now, they all have these informational displays that take the place of our old gauge package. How we used to have our tachometer, engine temperature, oil pressure. These are all, this takes the place of that now. So it's all in one, and then this Pierce one here even has the water level gauge in there. So up here is the RPM, so that's your tachometer, your check engine, stop engine's right there, just like you would have on the dash of the truck. And then you've got temperature, oil pressure, battery voltage, fuel, and pump temperature. And always my argument with these was that all I got were these little bar graphs. Couldn't really see if I had a 200-degree engine or a 210-degree engine. But if you hit this menu button, it will scroll through all these values in the electronic engine software. It'll show you exactly the engine temperature, exactly the oil pressure. It's 184 degrees, it'll show you that. And you just continually press this menu button and those values will scroll through this message screen. And then you get engine hours there and all kinds of stuff. All right, so here's silence. It's silence any alarms that you may have going off right here. And then got two indicators, pressure control or PSI control and RPM control. And the control mode button here, when you come out to the pump panel on this truck, you have to press the mode button to get one of these to light up, so for it to pump water. And then that's preset here. And your throttle ready LED.
You'll be asked to interact with the governor and the pump panel controls. For demonstration purposes, all the pump operator examples will assume that you have properly set the fire apparatus to pump mode. When the interlock circuit has been properly engaged, the throttle ready LED will illuminate.
Everybody know what interlock circuit is? So that's one thing that has to be engaged before another thing will work. Good example on this, to raise the cab, you have to have the aerial lifted and the battery on and the ignition on and the parking brake set, or the cab won't come up. Those things are interlocked. Okay. Same with this interlock circuit here is transmission, parking brake, regular pump being shifted into drive. So those things tell you whether this, if that throttle ready LED is not on, the truck won't pump water into the pump tank. And this throttle won't answer the throttle, it won't idle the engine. So that's what interlocks.
Illuminates. Notice the pressure or RPM mode must always be selected at the start of pump operations. Establish a water source. For this example, we will use water from the tank. Open the tank to pump valve. 45 psi indicates that you have established a water supply to the pump, and the governor will regulate pump discharge pressure. If the master discharge pressure is between 15 and 45 psi, the governor will be in low water mode, and the engine RPM will be limited to 1100 RPM. The low water mode will be explained in more detail in Chapter 6. Note, if you do not have at least 15 psi discharge pressure, the governor will not ramp up the engine in pressure mode. Engage the primer pump until you have established a discharge pressure of at least 15 psi before proceeding any further. Rotate the control knob clockwise to request 150 psi. Idle engine to an increasing psi value. Notice that the governor ramps up the engine RPM until the pump discharge pressure stabilizes at the requested 150 psi. Always remember that the message display only shows what you are requesting, and the actual discharge pressure is shown only in the pump discharge gauge. Note, you could have pressed the preset button and the governor would have brought the pump pressure up to the preset PSI value. As the hose lines or other water applications are used or shut down, the governor will continue to maintain 150 psi. The requested pressure will be maintained as long as it is within the capabilities of the pump, water supply, and associated equipment. The pump operator will not need to make any further adjustments to the governor. However, all pump operations should always be monitored carefully. Now, lower the pump pressure to 130 psi by using the control knob. PM until the pump discharge pressure reaches 130 psi. Open the discharge valve. That the hand nozzle is open at all times. Notice that as the water begins to flow through the open discharge, the governor automatically increases engine RPM to maintain 130 psi. We will now add a 3-inch supply line from a fire hydrant. Use an air bleeding device to bleed all the air from the supply line. Once the supply has been established, gradually open the intake valve. Engine, pump, and governor to compensate for the increase in intake water. The governor automatically adjusts the engine RPM to maintain the requested 130 psi pump discharge pressure. Now, close the tank to pump valve. The tank fill valve. Tank. The governor will automatically increase engine RPM to maintain the discharge pressure. Now that the tank is full, close the tank fill valve. Requested discharge pressure throughout this exercise by varying engine RPM. Bring the engine to idle by rotating the control knob counterclockwise until idle engine is displayed in the message display and the engine RPM is brought down to idle. Value that is lower than the pressure when the engine is at idle, the governor will not be able to give you a lower pressure. Examples of this situation may be if you have a water source that provides a significant intake pressure. If you request a 90 psi discharge pressure with no water flowing, the governor will bring the engine to idle RPM but cannot reduce the pressure further. If water is flowing, gating valves may be an option for obtaining a lower pressure. The idle button can be used to shut down. If you use the idle button, the governor will drop out of control mode. Warning: if water is flowing when you press the idle button, there is a risk of creating a pressure surge on the intake line. Select RPM mode by pressing the control mode button twice. Combination of the red RPM control LED. You are now in RPM mode. You can now make an RPM change using the control knob or by pressing the preset button. Use the control knob to bring the RPM to 1100. Make the same change as long as the discharge pressure is below 20 psi. Note, the preset button in RPM mode is locked out if there is a pump discharge pressure above 20 psi. The Pierce governor will now maintain the requested engine RPM. In RPM mode, the Pierce governor will not automatically increase engine RPM, and in only one case it will lower engine RPM. As a safety feature, it will limit the